I'm an entrepreneur not because actually in my family I was the first one to be an entrepreneur. But I wouldn't say fortunately or unfortunately, I'm part of that generation who experienced the genocide in '94. And that's really shocked me. I was very young back then. When we left in '94, went to Canada. I wasn't the police in the street, by the way, but I wasn't James Bond either. So calm down.
Yeah. So you landed in Kigali, and what happened?
I made a lot of mistakes, and very costly mistakes. But I went to the central bank many times, and I remember I went to see this lady. She was like, "Finn, what?" The idea was fantastic. Everybody loved it. Up to the president. I met the president loved it. Everybody was like, wow, we need that, right? And that's where the chaos started. Then I hit the button of like, shut it down.
You were not doing a different business. I'm a customer of your business.
I'm seeing something else here. Everybody was so worried like you're gonna lose money. Now everybody's like, shit, how can I join? You see?
Do you think entrepreneurship is for everybody?
What do you think?
Muhire, thanks a lot for making it, man.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's start off with, what are some of the key events that you believe in your life happened a long time ago that you believe now they prepared you to become the man that you are today, or the entrepreneur that you are today? There's always stuff that we've lived through, and it only takes a couple of years later when we're doing something and we're like, oh, this is really what this thing prepared me for. You know, what are some of those that you can think of?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur not because actually in my family I was the first one to be an entrepreneur. Not even my grandpa, and I believe my grandpa. I've never heard of anyone say, "Oh, your grandpa was a trader, etc." Like Dangote. Nothing at all. Most of them were either working for white people back in the days, and then other were public servant. But I wouldn't say fortunately or unfortunately, I'm part of that generation who experienced the genocide in '94. And that's really shocked me. I was very young back then, and we couldn't understand what was going on. And then that question of how come people came to the point of killing their neighbors, etc. I wanted to have an answer, a clear answer, rather than just saying it's bad politics. So I realized the country was extremely poor. If you look at the numbers anyway, you go on Google, search the Rwanda GDP before '94, it's ridiculous, right? So, and we were in a country with a lot of people. So poor people in a small land, definitely the fire was ready to spark. So myself, I was a public servant in Canada, where I grew up. When we left in '94, went to Canada. So I was in Montreal police. I wasn't the police in the street, by the way. I was more in the intelligence unit, but I wasn't James Bond either. So calm down. You know, I was more in the office and then gathering details for the big boys to do what they have to do. Yeah. So once I realized that if our country keeps, country meaning Rwanda, even if I was in Canada, I would still believe like I'm Rwandan before being anything else. If this country keeps saying poor, then definitely this thing will happen again. It may not be another genocide, but it may be another whatever chaos thing. So I decided, like, you know what, since entrepreneurship, of course, I had to read about economy. I read a lot of books. I went to school, etc. So once the economy is more stable and has more opportunity for many people, there's less chaos that can happen. And the best way to create opportunities is entrepreneurship, of course. So I decided to quit my job in Canada, came back to Rwanda to venture myself on how to become an entrepreneur. I made a lot of mistakes and very costly mistakes. But so to answer your question, what made me an entrepreneur today is I'm looking to see how I can create more opportunity by creating business that are sustainable, but also by inspiring other young people to not just become public servant, but also to say, you know what, if Muhire can quit a well-paid job in Canada to come and venture into entrepreneurship in Africa, maybe also I should do that. And by statistics, we know that most economy in the world are driven by SMEs. So let's create more SMEs. But basically, it's what happened to me when I was young in 94 that pushed me to say, how can I be a serial entrepreneur or an activist entrepreneur? And here we are.
Yeah. And so when did you come back?
2014.
2014. And what was the landscape then? So for example, you have this amazing job. Did you have some family still back here?
No, I mean, my except my cousins and aunt, but my whole family, like siblings and my parents were all outside of London.
Yeah. Did you have an idea of what problem you wanted to come and solve?
Well, not really.
Yeah. So you land in Kigali, and what happened?
So I first made a visit of 15 days before I decided to come. I came, it was in July 2014, and visited the country, and I was sort of like, wow, this country has changed. I left the country, I was 11 years old, and then it was totally chaos, destroyed, and now things were working. And at the same time, I can still see there's some level of poverty still that needed to be addressed. So I'm like, okay, things are working, and I have the will to come and be part of this journey. Let's pack our bags, come back. So 1 month later, I was back. So I went back on, I think 19th, and another month, following month, I was already back here without having an idea what I'm going to work on. However, I have experienced a challenge of helping my siblings here in Rwanda by sending them money to go to school, and this money was misused. So I was like, maybe if I fix this challenge, because I heard many people were sending money to build houses to fund education, but this money was always mismanaged. And also the cost to send that money was too high. So I'm like, here we go. That's an opportunity for me. Let me start by fixing that challenge. So that's how I landed, but with really having no idea how things are going to turn on. Yeah.
And when you come back, for the record, for everybody listening and watching, you were one of the first people to ever build the first few fintech startups in the country, right? Which I'm assuming was addressing that problem, right? So tell me, what were the early days of that, right? So you say, okay, let me start fixing this problem. Did you have any background in tech? Like, what was how did you come up with the idea?
Well, as I say, first of all, the challenge was personal because we've been sending money. A lot of diaspora people send money to Africa. I feel it's the number one source of, I would say revenue, because it's not selling, but of income for the continent. Way ahead of the other aids we are receiving from various sources. So I think approximately we are talking about 60 to 70 billion a year. It's a lot of money. Nigeria alone has 20 to 30 billion. So you can see it's a lot of money coming into Africa. But when you measure the impact, it's very hard to see where this money is going. First of all, in terms of exchange rates, if I send you $100, you're probably going to get, if you take out the services, the transport you have to pay, the conversion rate, at the end of the day, you will have maybe $70. So you lose $30 in the process, which is very high, right? So when I realized that, I said, like, I need to fix that. So I had no background because my studies are mainly in communication, a college degree in video filming, and my bachelor was in communication. So, and then I did some certificate in business here and there. So I had, except my little brother who's a software developer in the biggest company in Canada. I've been seeing him touching computer etc., but I have no idea what HTML or whatever MySQL code looks like, right? Yeah. So, but for me, I believe in a team. So I said, okay, you know what? I have the idea. I know I can raise money. I could speak well and explain my problem and get some funding. Now I needed to have a tech team. So from the speech I was getting from this promo video or the BTC, there were some young people who were ready to build that. So I came and started looking for these young people, and that's where the chaos started.
Yeah, well, what's the chaos?
I came with something that the idea was very sophisticated, and that's very known. The idea was fantastic. Everybody loved it. Up to the president. I met the president loved it. Everybody was like, wow, we need that, right? But we had no, for example, fintech laws in 2014. I went to the central bank many times, and I remember I went to see this lady. She was like, Finn, what? I'm like, well, you know, financial technology laws. She was like, here's the book. Go and see what fits you, and then come back to me. We regulate you. I was like, she was like, what the heck? You know what I mean?
Back in 2014, right?
2014. And then I was asking, do you have a sandbox? Like, what's sandbox? They were like, oh, no, we don't have a sandbox. We have no even idea what sandbox is. Because other central bank in Europe, in Canada, they had some sandbox where you can develop your own product. And then with the time, they will understand it and they regulate you. So now I had a challenge where I don't know when the laws for fintech in Rwanda were to arrive. And yet I have pitched my idea to so many people. I had already an angel investor who has pitched already 50K in the business. And I'm like, okay, let's swim and see what's going to happen. And I think that was one of the biggest mistakes I made. And I think if you were to start a business, which is like new in the market, the first thing is to look for regulation. If the regulations are not there, if you're not a lawmaker or whatever, so don't start it. So we started it and it went viral. Like literally people didn't even know my name. They were calling me Merchants. So it went viral. All the pitching event, I was winning money here and there. But we couldn't really operate at a certain extent because we were somehow illegal. Let me say that way. Nobody ever came to us say, okay, stop it officially. But every time we wanted to raise, let's say $200,000 and more, the due diligence will require us to have a permit from the central bank. So there was no rules. So the central bank couldn't give you a permit unless you become a bank. And I wasn't a bank, because if you become a bank, then they'll ask you this board of director appointed by the central bank, etc. So I wasn't a bank. So I even tried to collaborate with some banks, but even them, they were not really understanding what I was building. So we were stuck, like raising few amount of money, 10K here, 20K here. By the end of the day, that amount was amounted to a very huge amount. And unfortunately, in 2018, we were like, okay, there's no way we can build this without this license. Then I hit the button of like, shut it down. Yeah. And 1 year later, puff, Sandbox was here. The law for fintech was here. Like, damn, but it was already too late.
Yeah. And just to take you a little bit back, what exactly were you building?
So I wanted to connect the diaspora, or people who live abroad, with their communities. The number says on the continent, at least each family will somehow benefit of either directly or indirectly from the money from people who live abroad. So they will just send the money for medication, send the money for tuition fees, etc. So if you look how painful the whole process is, when I say painful, for example, me when I was about to send money, back then there were no application for MoneyGram or Western Union. So you had to go in to log to the physical office of MoneyGram or MTN. Western Union in Canada. So you line up, and then once you are in front of this lady, you have to fill up a very long paper just to send $100, and then she will charge you 10%. You're like, okay, so 110. Then she sends this money to your friend in Africa. So you have also to call this friend because the SMS, WhatsApp were not there, by the way. And then your friend has to leave the village because not all the Western Unions and the MoneyGram were present everywhere in the country. They are mainly in the main cities, right? Go to that office early in the morning and then line up, fill again another paper, and withdraw the money minus some fees again, I don't know how much, maybe 2 or 3% from this local office. So if you count my time, his time, the transport cost for both of us, plus the conversion rate, it was just ridiculous. It was almost illegal. You were paying like 30 to 40% just to get $100. So that's ridiculous. So for me, I was trying to eliminate all that by saying, like, let's make it very fast. What's the point? You need to get the money, right? So what can't I build an app from Canada? You're sitting in your living room. You want to send me money in Rwanda. You just have to have my number because my mobile money was already a reality in Rwanda. And then I will figure out how I would take your money from my mobile application and drop it into your mobile app. Today it's obvious, but 2014 it wasn't there.
It wasn't that obvious.
Yeah. Now what Remit is doing that, or everybody's doing that, but back then it wasn't there. And I pushed even the limits where I said, you know what? Why am I saying $100 to Yusuf in Rwanda? Maybe Yusuf wants to pay tuition fees, Yusuf wants to pay electricity, wants to pay water. So why don't I connect the water company to my app? Because, Yusuf is a young man. Maybe if I send him $100, he would drink 50, and then, and then the next one is like, bro, the tuition fees has gone up where, last year has been drinking with my money. So what if now I connect the school, the hospital, etc. to the app? Then what I just need is an ID of Yusuf, and then I'll pay directly the bill. So you post the bill in my application here, and then someone in Canada who gets the link and then pay that bill. Again, the regulation comes in. We had some mini hospital wanted to be on board. Some school already were on board, but and I understand them because it could be a way of money laundering. It was very easy for us to fake some numbers, and then at the end say maybe we've sold for 1 million of tuition fees, where last week just maybe $100,000, and wash some money in between. So the license thing was a big challenge. To the point when they told me, like, listen, we are looking to have maybe a sandbox sometime 2018, 19, but the license and laws, they're still in the process of being made. So I'm like, okay, it's too late. But what basically I was trying to eliminate all this hassle between two people who wants to help each other, and making sure that the $100 you're sending back to Africa or to Rwanda is at least used at a level of 99%. Whereas today, now maybe things is much better, but back then you send $100 and maybe only 50% will have a real impact on what you want. So yeah.
Is that problem solved now?
Almost, because I've seen some like BK bulk things. So there you can pay tuition fees, but still the user experience is kind of a little bit not interesting. But at least what Remit now can send the money directly to a school. You just have to instruct them like on which account, and it's very instant. Also, what Remit can send money to your mobile money, but still the experience is still a little bit too long and not really interesting. But the options are there. How are they used? I don't know. I haven't been following yet, but we still see a lot of money being channeled through the traditional channels, even though they have developed their own app. Western Union has their own app, MoneyGram have their own app now, but still people are still sending money, and the same complaints still around, like, I send money for building a house, the house never been built, send money for tuition fees, this girl never finished school. So those are realities I wanted to eliminate, are still there, but I've turned the page of fintech. I'm into other business now. I don't want to go back.
Yeah, because that was the thing I was going to ask you. You shut down the business. A year later, the regulations are now in favor. Why didn't you just be like, okay, it's just 1 year, man. Let's get back into it.
It's very expensive, first of all. Building a tech app or a tech company in Africa is extremely expensive. And it started with we don't have that abundant labor that is skilled to build very strong tech application that, when you're in fintech, you are a global player from day one. So if a credit card, for example, for us, we're getting transactions from all over the world. We had like 50 countries people were sending money from. So some credit card were denied because the location of the payment system was based in Africa. So you needed to make sure that whatever code this system of theirs needs is being built, and whenever it's challenged, it will sustain whatever challenge they're sending to. So to find such local people who are extremely qualified at that level, they will charge like $5,000 a month in salary, because everybody wants them. The banks wants them. Whoever else is located in Rwanda wants them. So if you are building a small fintech, a startup in fintech, you don't have that money. You can spend $5,000 per month on individual and salary only. It's too much. So back then, already in 2014, I was paying about between 1,000 to 1,005 a junior entry level programmer. So which was a little bit to compete with local banks and other people who were locating in Rwanda, like Motora, etc. But now probably to have a great, highly qualified guy, we're talking about 3,000 and more. So you need a team of maybe 10 or to 15 developer. That's already a payroll of 40,000 a month. So when I started with a little 50K USD, but today I will need maybe 500,000 to start. A fintech that is solid, that is enough. So that kind of money, I don't have it. So I won't go back because first of all, I don't have that money. And secondly, I feel like the fintech is no longer this beautiful thing that it was back then. It's so obvious now. It's like the thing today is AI, right? Fintech, you say fintech, okay, what are you going to do that is other bank or other app are not doing? Yeah. So it's no longer sexy anymore. So for the two facts, I'm like, no, I'm going to leave that to other people. Yeah.
But do you feel like there's a strong debate happening in the startup community now that, so one person said, oh, every time that we hear a pitch, there's always a fintech coming up in Nigeria, for example. Yeah. And then the other person said the number of fintech that is in Nigeria trying to serve all over Africa is still, super low compared to the number of fintech that the US has with a population of 300 million people. So, I mean, the comments you just made there, do you believe that there is no innovation to be made in fintech anymore?
I don't think so. Yeah. Simply because now banks in Africa are no longer relying too much on startups. They have never believed into startup except Safaricom. And we've seen what happened with this fintech in Nigeria. I won't name it, the whole story, the scandals here and there. So now banks are like, okay, you know what? We are going just to trust things that are working. And now Chinese and the US and Europeans have developed so cheap solution that can be used on the continent, and you buy them and plugs in and it works on your app. So if I'm a bank, why would I take my time to trust a startup which may not have the best programmer? And then the next day also, what we've seen with this fintech company in Nigeria happen, and no one wants to have that on his door. So access to sophisticated to innovation in fintech has become so abundant that I don't think now whoever is, I'm not discouraging anyone, right? They may have maybe a last option that we haven't discovered, but because fintech is about payment, right? Yeah. Now I think we've pushed the limits in terms of payment. Whatever you're going to invent is something like that is so obvious. Like, you want to pay with your fingerprint. Oh, it's obvious. With your eyes. Oh, it's obvious. With your face, it's obvious.
It's just a different way to pay, but
exactly. Which 2014 wasn't that obvious, right? So in fintech, I think now it's being replaced by AI, and AI is bringing a game that for me may eliminate even the traditional transaction we used to believe. Like, you have $5. In order for you to get a service, you need to pay me $5. The AI may predict maybe in 10 years you may need me, or I may need you. So therefore, credit by saying, because they are predicting 10 years, you may need Yusuf, so work for free or for those credit for now for Yusuf. That's kind of sophistication level that I think fintech, if we were to talk about fintech, but now it's going to have to deal fintech, AI, whatever, I don't know how they're going to call it. So that's kind of sophistication payment. That's why I feel like we need to do so. If I had to go back in fintech, I would definitely go into that with AI, where I can say, okay, with the numbers, details I have, how can we transact in 5 or 10 years from now on, and therefore build some credit. And we've seen China have started exploring that with the points. If you're a good citizen, you get some point, right? And your rate at the bank also, it varies depending how you behave. Yeah. So you see now this kind of non-material, non-tangible currency, which is not, I'm not talking about cryptocurrency, I'm talking about something that is more about owning your personality. payment that way. For example, if I run a clinic, and then you come, AI can tell me maybe you've been eating well, etc. So I'll charge you maybe less because you may not be a very hard patient to treat. But if it tells me you've been eating junk food, etc., then I'm like, okay, or if I'm an insurance company, I'll charge you more. So that element for me, if I was to come back in fintech, I would explore that. But again, building such technology, it's very expensive in Africa. And I feel for me, we are seeing the latest days of this traditional fintech company. You pay etc. Many big companies are building some plug and play cheap solution for our bank to use. Even our local startup, in terms of payment, they're going to be able to do those payments with very reliable technology made by Oracle, etc., World Remit, or I don't know who, and then at cheap cost. Like now, most of servers are hosted by Amazon and etc., but you don't host. I know in Rwanda we have a couple of servers, but they're so expensive, no one uses them except the government. So that's a true example, like what's going to happen in the near future. You won't need to host your payment even in Rwanda. And we are going to move to a more sophisticated payment system that is just not about me, you giving me $5 and I give you $2. So fintech days are going to, I won't say they're going to die, because people, for example, when the TV came in, people thought the newspaper would die. Some people still read newspaper. Like if you go in West Africa, in French part of West Africa, people still in the morning buy newspaper, which in Rwanda, few people do that in Rwanda because we all own our mobile application. So people will still use those payment. But I think in 10 years, just going to be like, I don't know, the cassette. You know the cassette? We used to play the cassette. So yeah, I would suggest anyone to invest there. Yeah. If you invest in fintech, make sure there's AI component on that one.
True.
Yeah.
I was listening to this podcast where somebody said that they were talking about the relationship between fintech and banks, and somebody was like, the banks as a fintech, never consider a bank as a competitor, because the kind of market you're trying to tap into, they're not interested in it. They're like, please, good luck. It's amazing for you, but then they're in a whole different other business because they've seen what the actual money is. And they're like, the market you're trying to attack, please go for it. Amazing, good for you. But we're not even going to go there. But I'm seeing a lot of apps coming up in Kigali or in Rwanda that are focusing on saving, saving groups and this and this, like you can put your money there and like friends and whatever. What are your thoughts on these, right? Because for me, like when I'm looking at them, like, sounds interesting, but I'm seeing a lot of them on the market. Yeah. There's already great key players, but why are we seeing new ones coming up? Like, what are your thoughts on those?
I think people are still building company just to build company, and that's a problem, because you need to understand what's the philosophy behind saving, right? Mm-hmm. If you save your money into a traditional bank, at the end of the year, they say they're gonna give you 6% interest, right? But if you look at the inflation, you are losing, because the inflation, like recently, the central bank was saying we're about above 12%. We even reached 18%. So saving your 10 million in a bank, you are losing money because your money was just losing value. Even the 6% they're going to add it's worthless, right? Now, I've seen people building this app just to do what the bank are doing. So, and they will maybe say, okay, we're going to give you 10%, but I'm not interested. If they could bring another way, innovative way to save, say, okay, you know what? Like the way this Caisse Populaire, how do you call it, is that's the government that saves money from everybody who works. We need to pay kind of
social,
exactly.
Yeah, security.
I don't know how to call it.
Social security.
Exactly. So what they do, they don't put the money in the bank. They build things that takes value with the time. So, and then when they have to pay you back, either they sell that or they whatever they have to do, but they don't put their money in a bank. So all these saving group are very funny because they say, okay, give us your money. we're going to put your money in local banks because I don't think they are saving so much money they can invest elsewhere. Yeah. And obviously, they're just teaching you the culture of saving, which is good. But if you do the math, you're losing money. Money it's a tool. People should understand that. That helps you to move from point A to point B. It's like a car. Yeah. A car loses money on a daily basis. Money loses value on a daily basis. Like from the time we start this podcast and the time we're gonna finish, the rand and franc have lost some milli whatever franc value, right? So keeping somewhere, I mean, nobody's gonna rob you anyway, so nobody does that. It's over, right? So for me, what I'm seeing in local market, there's a lack of innovation.
Yeah,
and it's somehow caused by the fact people are not trying to push the boundaries. Our culture often in Rwanda wants us to be very quiet and stick into what other people have done before us. And that's a very dangerous way because otherwise we'll never be able to create plans, we'll never be able to create anything innovative. Yeah. So we need to think and say, okay, you know what? I want to create this business, but what problem I'm trying to resolve? And etc. What am I bringing that has not been done? Yeah. And that won't be done within 5 years. Or people understand it maybe within 5 years, because you have now 5 years to go ahead of everyone. It's funny like today when I see payment of water on app. I was pitching that 2014. And people were like, no, it's not possible. You can't add 300 franc. Me, I was accepting cheaper because I wanted to charge only 200 franc on a payment of utility bills. But now for water it's 300. I don't know how for electricity, what percentage they're taking in. So the saving group also should be the same way. I am saving my money to do what? For instance, if you say we're going to start a saving group, once you save after 1 year, you get a 50% discount at Carnegie Mellon. Damn, I will do that. Yeah. Then I don't care how you guys are going to figure out, whatever you're going to do to get me the 50% at Carnegie Mellon, that's more valuable than the 6% the bank is giving me. Even if you say you're going to give me 10%, no, I'm not interested in 10%. But if the tuition fees at Carnegie Mellon for a master's degree is maybe $20,000, and if I save with you for 10 years, for 1 year, I pay only $10,000, definitely I'm going to send my money there. Yeah. So because even the value of knowledge I'm going to get from Carnegie Mellon is of another level. So those things, and that's why I'm expecting, that's how I see fintech. Fintech shouldn't be just payment, but we need to move to a much more sophisticated way of giving value to money or to finances. Yeah.
There's a lot of young people there, or young professionals, let's say, who are working a good job, saving a little bit of money, putting it in the bank. What would you advise them to invest their money into, right? Because most of them are like, yep, I'm making a little bit of money, I'm spending this, and I can save this and put it in the bank. Either maybe I can put it in dollars, maybe that's not going to lose that much value as the local currency. The biggest thing right now that a lot of people are doing is they buy a piece of land in the village, flip it, sell it at a higher price. But like, what other ways could they use their money to do?
First disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. So whatever I'm saying may be bullshit. So don't take it as a conversation between me and myself, right? Yeah. So disclaimer that.
Think of me as the person, I'm your friend. And then I'm just asking for advice.
So the best investment you can make, first of all, you start with knowledge. Buy knowledge. Whoever has knowledge is going always to be better than whoever doesn't, right? For example, we've seen some local people who are very wealthy. Like they started in the village and they did what you said, they bought some land here and there and they flipped it. And now today they maybe have $10 million in their account in Rwanda, but they're stuck there. I have some friends of mine, like I'm 42, so I have some friends of mine who really are $1,000,000, but they can't think beyond, like they're like, okay, we've bought so many land, we are tired of buying land, what can we do? So when you bring such idea like, okay, let's build an app with the AI, like, oh, what's that? I think the best investment you can make, first of all, is buying yourself knowledge, right? Knowledge doesn't mean you go to a master's degree, but you can register, subscribe to this great source of information we are having outside here on the internet, etc. build some clubs where you meet to discuss about where the world is going. I remember before the COVID, Bill Gates predicted that. I remember it was World Forum Economic of 2018, if I'm not wrong. They went there and they published some reports saying the next challenge wasn't about nuclear war, etc. It was about some disease spreading at a much faster speed. Basically, they described COVID. And I was with a friend of mine, actually Shikama, you know him. And then we read that, we're like, okay, well, maybe it won't happen. And the next year, COVID showed up. So whoever could give value of that have seen the opportunity, for example, into logistics. Maybe he set up his call center, he built ETC, he built the vaccine facilities, and then he waited. And maybe he started producing even gloves or this thing we needed in face mask, exactly. So maybe he said, like, you know what, I'm going to wait for another 2 years before this thing happened. And it happened much faster. These people became billionaires instantly. Literally, I have friends of mine that I won't mention here in Rwanda who become very wealthy because he was selling only gloves. He had already contact, but it was just by coincidence. He had contact with people who were reselling, let's say, gloves that didn't pass the highest quality into a specific area, country. Then he was selling them here in Africa because still we don't measure quality. You know, I didn't know there's a quality of gloves. I'm like, what? I thought it was just a glove and gloves, you know? Yeah. But during COVID, many countries just were ready to take whatever gloves that were available. The guy become now millionaire instantly. So knowledge is very important. So if you have to invest, you can invest in you can invest in a house. Once you have your house to live in and another house to rent, stop investing in buildings, because not only you're making our country poor. I keep telling people, for example, I'm an entrepreneur, but I did some 4 years in the government where I was heading the Made in Rwanda Secretariat. So we don't have enough construction material produced in Rwanda. So we are still importing a lot of them from whatever, neighboring countries elsewhere. And more imports means what? More our reserve currency is going down, right? And the more you import than you export, you're becoming poor. You're not becoming rich. So for me, it's even a trend that I feel like we should put some regulation to make sure once you have built 2 houses, please stop, right? Because you're causing our economy to go down. We have a lot of buildings that are vacant, so that's not good at all. So for me, you need a house to live into, which also, by the way, it's another debate, because in Swiss, 80% of Swiss people, they don't own a house. Yet they are top 5 of the wealthiest nations. Why is that? In Netherlands, the same. Why is that? Maybe owning a house is not the best investment. We should leave this social security agency investing in building like it is in Switzerland. But in knowledge, if you discover like a medicine, pill that can cure malaria instantly, you become billionaire. If you discover a way of, communicating using a much smarter smartphone, you become a millionaire. So knowledge is the most important investment today, where I believe people should put most of their money. And then you can, once you know something, you can even take it out of your head anyway. So you have a certificate that will confirm that Yusuf is ETC doctor into this. You're good to be a global citizen. So number 3, number 2 is building, but don't invest too much in that. Number 3, you need to start betting on local startups. Why I'm saying that, I'm not here to advocate for them. I believe entrepreneurship is, as I say, is the best way to stabilize any nation, right? Like my friend who's a millionaire in dollar, I told him, like, listen, you need to start giving back to the community. It not only this will stabilize these young people who are looking for jobs, who are looking for investment. I don't know any local fund in Rwanda that is here to just fund startups. That's a big problem. We have, they said Kigali is among the top 10 cities where millionaires are being created every year. I think continent-wise, right? Now, however, there's a lot of young people who are looking for investment for their startup. And the more we can create, for example, a fund to give that money without too much due diligence to those startups, maybe among 1,000 startups, one startup become big, will become the next M-Pesa. Because there's no one, the advantage we have compared to these other big companies I told you that are producing cheap solutions for local banks, we understand better what we need today than them. M-Pesa was laughed at until people realized actually people needed to pay with mobile money. Now it went viral. How many other solutions that a very young people in the village understand better than IBM, Motorola, who just comes here and pitch a solution to local banks and they buy from them. So we need to make sure these young people with great ideas are funded without expecting that they are going to repay us. So if you have money to invest, also invest into that, because the more job we create, the more stability we cement in our community. As I say, my research came to the point of if a nation is poor, there's a lot of chances, 99% chance that it will implode anyway. It could be a genocide, it could be civil war, it could be anything. You will never see a developed nation, except when it was on World War II, but back then also Europe wasn't that developed. But today, even the US with this insurrection thing, there was no way US can implode. It's impossible. There's too much to lose that even people who are supporting the insurrection will say, okay, hold on. Let's put a pause on this thing. So we need to make sure we fuel a lot of investment toward the creation of jobs and then wealth, because among the 1,000 startups, if one become a millionaire, not only will be inspiration for the rest, but secondly, it also helps to stabilize the local market. So to sum up, three things: knowledge. It's very important. It's very important. Today, if you tell me I give you $1 million, can you cash in? Or I also give you 1 million value in terms of access to Harvard, to the greatest brain like Obama, Jay-Z. You're gonna make a call. We'll send a private jet. You meet Obama, and then everything's paid, and you come back. I'll do that. I'll take that. I won't take 10 million, because 10 million today, if you don't know where to invest that money. I have a friend who has that program here in Rwanda. Literally, it's like, where do I put this money? Like, I can't keep building, because you need to pay the taxes, you need to maintain them. It's no longer viable. But whenever I'm explaining him to go into fintech, to AI, he's like, no, what's that? So he's stuck with a very, this mafia guy who had a lot of money, didn't know how to put it.
Pablo Escobar.
So
a lot of liquidity.
Exactly. So it's the same. So those three things: knowledge, of course, some house where you can shelter your family, and of course, giving back to the community. That's a new way of investing. And I was expecting that the saving group could be also actually the way to fuel that money in this third option of fund, where you say, okay, you know what, save with us. We're channeling 50% of your money to the community. And if one of the company becomes bigger, then you own shares. You see, it's kind of more sophisticated, more interesting.
Yeah. Very insightful. Last year, you wrote a tweet. You wrote a tweet which sparked a lot of interest in the tech ecosystem. I'm going to read the tweet, and then we can talk a little bit about that. You said, and I quote, "Often entrepreneurs focus on raising funding and forget to serve. I've been there, did that, and the startup died despite over $350,000 in grants and prizes. Yeah. Now, with 3 years of research on entrepreneurship in Africa, I can proclaim that cash is not the problem, but the focus." Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, cash is not the problem. I have been lucky to meet people who are extremely rich in Africa. But when I say extremely rich, you like you can't believe what numbers they're showing you. But they don't know where to invest the money, right? Now, why the focus is the most challenging thing is, as we just touched a little bit, many people are creating startups just to create startup. I've seen Yusuf meeting the president, winning all these prizes here. I've seen Muhire ABCD winning ATC. So me too, I want to be famous like Yusuf or whoever else, right? And when you focus on becoming famous or just raising money, you forget to build your team. You forget to build your product. And that's what happened to my company. Of course, we had the challenge of license, but ourselves, we shoot on our own foot by just focusing on raising money. As I told you, without the license, I couldn't raise serious money. I went to Switzerland, met with the Credit Suisse, Tijam, who's now advisor to RDB. I went to his office later. I was very lucky to enter in his office. But everybody was like, do you have a license? No. So I thought the solution was to raise this little money. And I forgot to build the product. So I, as a CEO of a startup, of course, I will apply to all these small pitching event here in Kigali, and I won all of them. Literally, if you put Mergems, Muhire, 2014, 15, everybody was seeing me in a competition like, oh no, we know you're gonna win, and I will win, right? First the Gorilla 50 year, 10 year, everybody was pitching money on me, but I forgot to build a product. Maybe in a community or in an ecosystem that have given me a license, right? I could have, for example, say, okay, you know what? We don't have a license in Rwanda, but maybe they have it in Kenya, right? So what do? We leave some team here. We go and we open in Kenya. We build with the little money we've gotten, maybe 50K. Then we get licensed, then come back to Rwanda. So I was mostly focusing on bringing 5K, 10K. And 1 year later, 2 years later, the amount was huge. It was 350 and more. That's the money I remember, because we won more than that. But the product was still the same product like we were pitching. It have never matured. It was still this baby with few transactions, very weak. When I remember when I went to Switzerland, they tested and they sent like 100 transactions at the same time. It crashed. And then they reduced to 50, it crashed. They reduced to 10, it crashed. Like if 10 people can do the transaction the same time on your application, what do you have? They're like, let's reduce it to 5. It's still crashing. So it was very primitive 2 years later, 3 years later. So the focus is very important. Once you focus on what you're building and say, you know what, I am focusing on building this great service, great product, the money will follow. The money will follow. Because when I go back to, or for example, if as you mentioned, I'm back now in entrepreneurship. I run a new business. Now the product we're building is definitely a product that was needed in the market, because on our second month already, 90% of our costs were being covered by the money that was coming in. So when I compare the money I'm making 6 months on, actually we're on the 5th month now, I'm already making more money than the money I was making on a monthly basis with my fintech, whereas I had invested not even 10% of what I'd invested in Mergems. So meaning you need to focus on building the great product, the money will follow. And the money doesn't mean the money from investor necessarily. Yeah. The users. If you build a great product, a great service, users will come and they will pay. And today I started seeing some investors coming on my door like, okay, can we invest in your product? I mean, into your new business. I'm like, no, I'm not interested. Not because I don't need that money, but I like the money that being paid by the users is already covering most of my costs. Why would I bring now someone when I'm still not expensive enough? I'm like, let me get much bigger. Then when I need maybe $1 million or $2 million, then you can come in. So the money is not a problem. If I could raise up to $50,000, $350,000, sorry, in grant here and there without having a good product, it's a proof that money is not an issue. But if you don't build a great product, a great service, then you die for sure.
Yeah. We really don't know what we're doing in the beginning, right? But then when you're trying to build a second company, then you're like, oh, let me actually build it as organically as possible. Yeah. I would let it demand for funding instead of trying to inject money into it. I would let it say, okay, we've hit a point where we desperately need money, right? Do you feel like the elements of being a second-time founder makes you, run a much successful company?
Obviously, it's experience, right?
Sure.
And I was lucky enough that between my merger with fintech and now, I spent 4 years in the government, where I started a new agency that is doing well. They have now a turnover of 10 million a year, which is good. And some of my experience, or most of my experience on management, I borrowed it from my fintech company. I know like what not to do. For example, you need to be close to your numbers, close to your expenses, close to you automate you're like a pilot. Like now, the way I run my businesses, I run them like a pilot. I don't trust just myself. I trust the numbers. And every morning, for example, or let me say every month, we have some indication that we need to make sure we monitor. And most of the company, they don't care. They don't care how much they're spending in ETC. They don't care how much money is coming in. They don't even have a break-even point to focus on. They just run, and they're making sure someone will do an IPO on them, and then both become billionaire, right? So, and then also after the government agency I started, I was transferred to the Made in Rwanda Secretariat, which was an agency that was helping all these things made in Rwanda to communicate with a regulator and private sector, etc. So I had a lot of insight on what you do and what you shouldn't do. Now today, I'm much more calmer guy when someone comes in and say, okay, let's do this. I know some indication I need to monitor before I buy a new service or I buy a new product. Or what if we buy these, how much money is going to start bringing in from day one, for example? That's something most people should be, if you focus on generating revenue from day one, you have more chance to succeed than someone who say, I'm going to build something and then in 10 years it may become, who knows, man, COVID will come again, both you're dead, and then you have a lot of investors who are running after you to give them back money. So whereas if you say I'm building something and maybe in 3 months I'm going to start monetizing that, who's going to buy it? For example, you're building a podcast, someone should be interested to buy that content sometimes very soon. Otherwise you have 10,000 interviews or conversation with people, great minds, and then no one show up. Yet Netflix needs them, Disney, whatever thing needs them, Apple needs them, all these things. You need to make sure that someone needs to know it's there, and then and they start paying for that. It doesn't mean that you the money they're going to pay you will cover the cost. That's not the problem. If someone who is willing to pay, definitely showing like, oh, I have something interesting. Now you start fine tuning it, saying, okay, how do I make it more expensive so I can cover my cost? So that element of saying, okay, I need to make sure I can generate revenue as soon as possible. It's something that I bought from my fintech company, Failure, because we were not interested to make money when I was running my fintech. I was like, you know what? Let's make big. We need transaction. If there's 1,000 fake transaction, who cares? The company, someone will come and drop money on us. But when that money, dries out, you're like, okay, what do? We don't have users who can pay, who can afford your services because it's too expensive. We're basically subsidizing people to use our services. Because someone will paying $10 and he buys 9.9 of electricity. But the cost to transfer that money from Canada to Rwanda, it was more than 5%. So we're losing. So if I had focused on how do I make money, probably I would have built a much more stronger and better product. And probably I would have also looked for another ecosystem that has license for fintech. And then even though I say it's a Rwandan company that is now operating from Kenya, but the second being experienced in funding company, it makes you a much better leader than, of course, in anything else. The first time you drove a car, and after 10 years, you're a totally different person. So yes, that element counts, and that's why I also tell people you should experience the entrepreneurship, try it out, And if you fail, it's okay to fail. When I wrote my book it's called Starting from the Bush, how do you start a business from the bush? Literally, it's like the ecosystem back then was like the bush. And revealed that I lost that kind of money. People told me like, yo man, you know what? No woman would like to be with you because if you lost such money, you're damn stupid. Yeah. I'm like, no, it's not about that, you know? Yeah. It's about telling people it's okay. Yeah. When we read how local failure, all these people lost money, it inspires to say, okay, you know what? You can, I'm not saying go into business to lose money, but it's okay. You will be okay even if you fail, right? So being experienced definitely will help you to build a much better business. And it actually, even the statistics say in America that people have funded like 2 or 3 businesses. On their 4th, they are very great. And I remember, now we talk about it, some investors, they were asking me, is it your first company? And if I was surprised, I say yes, they're like, okay, thank you very much. They will leave the table. And I come to realize that if I say it's my second, they're like, what was it, the first one? Then I had to invent kindergarten business we did, we sold some lemonade, like, okay, so it's your first. So some investors do not even invest in you unless you're on a second or third failure, because they know now you are strong, you are more mature, you are stable, you know some indicator that you need to monitor on a daily basis or weekly or monthly basis in order for you to not fail.
Yeah, and most importantly, you know what not to do, right? Yeah. You are not doing a different business that is killing it here in Kigali. It's I'm a customer of your business. Tell us a little bit about what the business is and what gap did you see in the market for you to start that business?
Basically, I'm setting a kind of amusement park, which is starting very small, of course. And why now? If you see Rwanda or Kigali is becoming a modern city, slowly, or not really slowly, very fast. And we have the middle class is growing. And this middle class is, the good thing in Rwanda, the middle class is not trying to move outside of Rwanda and go living abroad. They want to stay. But their kids and themselves, they're exposed to things that are happening in other modern cities. So in Rwanda, we have nightclubs, we have bars, and we have gorilla. Once you've done the 3, like, shit, what do I do? So we need to start seeing some amusement park that are more sophisticated than just we've been seeing, just a huge pool where kids are throwing there. No, that's not an amusement park. So basically, building on my past experience on how do you onboard services and products that the market need, we've started into a location that has 400 square meter only, with a few games, PlayStation, Xboxes, and pool table, etc., to see if people will want actually to come and spend $10 on just a night per person playing. And good enough. People want more game. We are now actually forced to expand to double our space following, at least for the next month. And we're already talking about building our own 3,000 square meter sometime end of next year. So the construction may start sometime in June. So, and for me, it's a confirmation that what we're building, the market needed. And now what we have to do is just make sure our numbers adds up. So the business is an amusement park. It's not something like sophisticated, but it wasn't there in Rwanda. And, we have conferences happening here. Rwanda is becoming a hub for conferences and high-end tourism, and is also partnering with this great team in Europe and elsewhere. So the name Rwanda is out. So people want to discover what is this Visit Rwanda, etc. So when they come to Rwanda, they're like, okay, I've seen gorilla, and what do I do? Or I just finished my meeting with a big conference about whatever, but what do I do? Oh, there's club. Well, I don't want to go to a club. Or there is a bar or a cafe. Well, I have a cafe. So we need to have this product that are obviously existing in other markets that are already advanced. And so I took it and then I say, you know what? Let's not reinvent the wheel. Now the only thing we are reinventing is the onboarding of games into this amusement park. But so far, we realize we need to go fast, and then people want more games. They want more games, sophisticated games, and we don't want to start something and someone else come and build it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've always been passionate about the entertainment industry in Rwanda, right? I think a couple of years ago, I was involved in the first escape room that came to Kigali. That was at the Hut. We did amazing. It was a great game. And I've always had this thing that I think about all the time, which is we are very good at, as Rwanda, we're very good at attracting people to come, but we're very slow when it comes to making them stay. And spend more money, right? Because people are like, yeah, we're here. We want to spend more money. So, take more of our money. Like, how do you take it? The cafe, right? So tell me, so what are the numbers that are showing you that this is actually working, right? What are some of the numbers that you've done so far? You started 5 months ago. What's happening? What are the...
Well, I remember when you started, our first week, we did like 50K only because nobody knew about us. But today we are in double digit in million Rwandan franc, of course. So 4 months later, and we're like, people are keeping, like, people wants to book it for Christmas, book it for their wedding, book it. Like, we have some crazy requests like, what? Who will do a wedding in the marketplace? We thought it was a joke. Like, you sure?
Really?
Like, they're like, yeah, I want to have something unique. Like, no, unfortunately, we can't do that. We are still small space where we can't afford to make it totally private for someone, because we still care also about our regular customer who come. We don't want them to come and say, oh, sorry, it's a wedding of someone. So that alone showed me that we own something that is definitely needed. The fact 5 months later, all my payroll is paid by business revenue. All my costs, marketing costs, we still haven't covered the rent, but that's the only thing that's left. But we believe sometime this month, now even the rent will be covered. So I've never built a business that can break even 6 months. So for me, it's like, this is great.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Yeah.
Out of all the fintech, sophisticated apps and all these things, this is a business that can actually sustain itself.
So like something that when I started this business, people were like, Muhire, man, you are 41, because I turned 42 last month. So you're 41, you should settle, buy a land, get married, because I'm not married yet, get married. So manage the little money you've been able to have. God has given you a second chance. So, and then, be a good, you can be a good public servant, you can run for office, etc. I'm like, no, man, I'm seeing something else here. So everybody was so worried, like, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose money. Now everybody's like, shit, how can I join? You see? Because when they see the numbers, they're like, no, you must be lying. Like, no, I'm not lying, because we monitor, of course, based on my past experience. We monitor our money like very closely. We have bank statement and financial statement that are very complete. And they're like, is it real? Like, yeah, we open our account, bank account, some people to look at it. They're like, damn, like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just thought of it and then, made sure, of course, there's some uniqueness about the place though. Like, it's not just about setting up games. We are building a community around. Our marketing strategy is more organic than the usual buy airtime on TV, etc. We want to make sure people, even someone else comes in with an arcade, people still want to come out to our place because they feel belonging to that place. They feel like they are contributing something more unique. So, but that is the experience, of course, I've acquired from my past business. And however, the gap, in terms of the gap, we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. We want to build a lot of very interesting that I want to reveal here, so my competitor won't. But just to give them an idea, if you're planning to build $1 million facility, it says a lot.
Yeah. That's impressive, man. I mean, I've definitely been to your arcade. We brought our team there.
Yeah. Please come back again.
Yeah, we're definitely coming back. I mean, it's something that I actually think about whenever I'm like, me and my friends are like, oh yeah, let's hang out, and we're like, okay, we're tired of restaurants. We're like, yeah, just go there, talk a little bit, play some games.
Yeah.
And there's always one thing about an ex-startup founder doing a, let's say, traditional business, that they always bring in a little bit of innovation into the business.
Yeah,
right?
true.
Because if you think about it, all the games that are in there already exist in all these different facilities, right? But nobody really takes the approach you guys are taking when it comes to community building. You have some packages for teams.
Exactly.
You can buy membership. You can do this. So you really are, adding on that element of like, we're going to take this existing model, but we're going to add on our sauce and scale it, right? And make it into something great. So super interesting there. Do you think entrepreneurship is for everybody?
What do you think? You've been to this game for a while, right? So
I have my own opinions. I don't think it's for everybody, right?
Right.
Like, it's not for everybody. I think you have to start. The only reason why you should start a company or should become an entrepreneur is because there's a problem that you identified that when you talk to a lot of people, they don't see it as a problem.
True.
But you see it as a problem. You're like, this is really a problem, and you want to solve it.
All right, cool.
The number two thing is if you have a lot of experience into that specific sector, it does help to have a lot of experience in the sector to say, I've been a banker for so many years.
But that's not a must, though.
That's not a must, right? But then those are the kind of, I'm looking at it from like a, let's say an investor standpoint, right? I would really appreciate a founder who's like, I've worked in this sector, I've been a teacher.
Because that's a risk-averse approach. So you try to approach, but...
But the thing is that person has a lot of experience when it comes to just understanding the sector itself, right? Or a person who's faced the problem himself, saying, I wanted to transact money on behalf of I couldn't do it. And I looked around, I couldn't find any solution for it. And it became a pain for me. So I feel like if you're starting a company for those reasons, then please become an entrepreneur. You have a lot of chances of becoming successful. All the chances, something like this, either way. But
99% of chance you fail, despite all these things.
You can still fail.
That's the start.
But those are amazing reasons, let's say, to kind of like start a company, because you will enjoy the process of doing it because you understand the problem and you care about the problem, right? Starting a company for other reasons, increases the chances of actually failing. Right? Maybe it might be 99%, but it might be
9999,
right? Of failing, right? Because you're getting into it for the wrong reasons.
True.
And the most important thing is, I believe this thing is really hard to the point where if you don't really care about it, when it becomes hard, you will quit.
True.
Because you'll be like, I can't do this. I can't get a job. You will quit. And the most reasonable person should quit.
True.
Exactly.
True.
Because entrepreneurs are actually not very...
I think we are insane.
Because if you're rational, you'll be like, I have a family, I can get a good job, pay my rent,
and then
it's good. So that's why I believe that it's not for everybody.
So I think you're right, but also allow me to disagree a little bit, because entrepreneurship is not like, you can build spaceship. It's okay. It's entrepreneurship still. But the ways often it's described is people feel like, man, you gotta be crazy, insane, not rational. You're like someone who's like, there's something wrong with you, right? To become an entrepreneur. But for me, I feel like, as you say, true. If you just come in to be like Yusuf, not because Yusuf have built a great company, but because maybe he's famous on ATC.
You want to be on podcast.
Then that's, please don't do that, because you don't know what Yusuf went through before he can get credit to even speak in front of people, right? But I feel like everybody should try to be an entrepreneur at least once in his life, because it will teach you some great lessons in life. For example, where you need to focus on what's matter the most than anything else in whatever you're building. And secondly, also, it will open your eyes or your mind. Let me say, an entrepreneur is always going to be interested on many things, like how the world works, how the I don't know food is produced, how whatever the sun is hot, things like that, because you are constantly trying to make sure that the money you have is going to multiply. As I told you, my friend who's from the village, 10 years now, is $1 million. Like, okay, I have a problem. I can't keep building. What do I do? So I'm sure the fact he came to me is he knows I have some crazy idea, even though he resisted. But I'm sure the conversation we had, he went back home with like, okay, maybe we should do this. I hope the wife will let him invest in many other things I told him he can invest into. But what I'm saying is entrepreneurship, it's something that is not, it's not a promise to be a millionaire. It's not a promise to be a famous whatever, but it's going to shape your mind. It's going to it's like, oh, yeah, it's almost like the military thing. You become less fearing about life, because most of people, they are like, oh my God, if I don't have a job, I'm gonna die. But I've been out of job for 10 years now. Because when you're a founder, most of the time you don't even pay yourself a salary, which is wrong, by the way, because in your book then something's wrong. Because once you run out of your saving, how do you now enter into the books? Yeah. But anyway, that's another debate. What I'm saying is entrepreneurship will open your mind, will open your eyes, and you will be less fearing about life, and you start even enjoying life, because you feel like, I can change my community. You don't need to run for mayor, for etc. If you start a business that, for example, bring water, like this lady called Christelle, she just got $7-something million. So who thought like bring clean water to the community will make you a millionaire? Of course, it's a company's money, but still, once you start managing, that's 7 billion rand and franc, bro. So, when you start managing such a kind of money, first of all, your company will pay you for your master to make sure you're a good CEO. Exactly. And then they'll pay you at, Harvard, etc. And it's understandable, like, wow, it's a founder. We need to make sure this founder really is up to the game. He's managing 7 million. So, and I'm sure she didn't start it because she wanted to become a millionaire. She saw a problem, as you mentioned, and she believed by changing the livelihood of her community, she will have accomplished something. She needed to make sure it's sustainable. Yeah. Then maybe I think she's been also around for maybe almost 10 years, 7.8 million, right? And now this thing is going to grow. So for me, I feel like to be an entrepreneur, you don't look for fame, don't look for money. Look for how do you bring change in your community, how to bring about change in your country. Once you've done that, you look for sustainability of that project of yours. And then if you realize it's not sustainable, you stop it. Don't be afraid of what people are going to say. I'm like, man, I remember the first days when I released the draft of my book, because I'm still finishing it. The book's finished, but I need the publisher etc. But I released it anyway in PDF format, because I don't want to make money. I'm like, okay, I want to show you it's okay to fail. Yeah. People are like, my friend, you can't say that. Our culture is like, when you fail, you don't say that. You don't brag about failing. That. And people are like, is it 300,000 Rwandan franc or 300,000 USD? I'm like, USD and more. Like, no. Like, Muhire, you are lying. I'm like, okay, fine. Go on Google, put my name, and see only the grants that are there. The least you can count with Google, it's 100 something. And even TechCrunch, the other online magazines that have listed us, they can say these people have raised it. I don't know how they get the information, but they have it. It's there. So for me, I feel like entrepreneurship is for everyone, as long as you're not looking for fame and quick money. Yeah. Everybody who did that failed. You've seen this young guy who had this cryptocurrency thing, and then he was living a boss life. He wanted to just jet with beautiful girls, etc. Of course, now he's in jail. So, but I just show you this young girl, Krista. You should have actually her on your podcast. It's very interesting how you start with a very, very small amount of money and now she's managing 7.8 million USD. And actually, she have gotten some prize from the king or the queen of England.
And she even got, I think, even $1 million last year, I think, or something like that.
And also, she met the Alibaba, also the Jack Ma. So you see, so if I'm sure she will tell you, like, I wasn't expecting to meet all these people. Yeah. My focus, remember, wasn't the money. It was like, how do I make sure I can sustain this business of mine of bringing clean water to my community? And then boom. So it's not magic. It's not building spaceship. You can't build them, of course, like Elon Musk. But most of entrepreneurs are working on daily basis challenges. So I feel still that way, it's for everyone. Yeah. And the other way I agree with you is when people are looking for, they focus on the wrong thing, which is fame, money, and
just to put on their LinkedIn that they're CEO and founder of a company, right? Yeah. The thing that we talked about, like so many solutions that we're seeing in the Rwandan tech ecosystem, like when you really look at it, you're like, is it really needed? Like, I would rather invest in one company that's been there for so long instead of like a new company that's a replica saying, oh, these guys didn't solve it. We came in and tried to solve it. So I definitely agree with you on that part, right? Everybody should definitely try to take a stab at it. But also tell people, like, also be cautious a little bit, right? Because this thing is very costly. Oh, yeah. So especially if you don't, you need a few things to be on your side for you to be able to take it, right? If you don't have the right, let's say, education, you don't have some savings to be able to put into it and say, I have a bit of runway to try this out, because you're not going to get a salary for a while, right? Especially if you're trying to do something that's going to change the status quo. That means it's going to take a lot of time for you to get the customer adoption and stuff. So if you don't have a lot of these things in place, then from day one, you're going to be complaining. True. Ecosystem, we can't get funding. And it's like, hey, the best entrepreneurs start with either their own money or as people around their money, like, exactly, right? If you don't have a lot of those.
By the way, if it's your first business, I'm informing you're going to lose that money of your friends and family. So they'll be like, oh, you lied. So,
Exactly. So prepared to have those difficult conversations.
So, what I agree with you also is be prepared to be uncomfortable. Very, in terms of living standards, you're going to be poor.
You're not going to take your girlfriend out to
please. No, probably you learn how to cook macaronis and cheese and some crappy hamburger with I won't say the leftover, but that kind of bad quality meat. When you go to the butcher, it's like, okay, first quality, second or third one with a lot of, crushed bones and etc. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's very uncomfortable. What I agree with you also, true, be prepared to take kind of pressure you've never known. Literally, I remember, for example, sometime with mergings, an investor will come in and say, okay, you know what? I like your idea. I'm going to give you $100,000, but I need you to do ADC. So I'll run in the shop, like buy new MacBooks, etc. And I'll tell my team, okay, you know what? Issue of payroll being late, it's over now. So definitely on this date, you're going to be paid on time, and I'm going to increase your salary, increase you know what? I'm promoting you from this to this.
Yeah.
And the investor will just disappear. You call him, you send an email, and like there's only 2 days left before the end of the month. You're like, I'm going to pay these people.
Exactly. Everybody's excited. And then expecting.
Yes. While you think about that, one pops in your office like, boss, can you give me an advance salary of just $500? You say you're gonna promote me, so and I'm like, no, this is good, right? Yeah, you see, you're like, Jesus Christ, I have experienced some level of stress that I don't even knew was possible. You start feeling like some, I don't know, anxiety, and your body also reacts in a very different way. You can't sleep, and then also sometimes it's very interesting because you need now to learn how to face your people. Say, okay, guys, okay, I had promised you to do this, but it's not happening. Of course, some will quit. And I remember some quit with the equipment of the office. They would just grab the laptop, like, you know what? I'm going to pay myself with this. You're like, no, you can't do that, even if I owe you money. And then you have to go to the police, say, okay, this guy left with the computer because I didn't pay him. Yeah. And the policeman is like, why did you pay him? We didn't pay him, you know? So we should actually arrest you. You're like, no, you can't arrest me because that's not your job. So it was very funny. You're like, I mean, it was very funny. And they take you to Twitter, on Twitter and say, hey, didn't pay us, etc. So you be prepared to swallow your pride and and feel like, okay, it's another level of pressure. On that one, I agree with you. Like, it's not for everyone.
And the thing is that why would you do that after understanding everything you've went through? Yeah. If you tell somebody, you're like, these are the things you're gonna go through. Yeah. Like, if you're insane enough to tolerate it, please, welcome.
I think when you analyze well, you realize that some happened because you didn't have experience to manage well the money. For example, when you're hiring, right? You're hiring a lot of people, but you don't need them. Yeah. All right. And then your contract when you're hiring are done to the point you can't even fire them. So today my contract are very quick. I give you 3 months of probation, and the probation says very well, I can fire you anytime without notice, without even explanation. So if you're willing to come with me on that journey, within 3 months I can just call you, say, stay at home. I mean, don't come. It's you're done. I'm done with you. And then once you pass the probation period, there are some like 2 pages of why I can fire you, right? Force majeure, government, etc. Blah, 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 I can fire you. But of course, I have another page saying, okay, I have bonuses. If you perform well, I give you more money. For example, in our arcade place, when we achieve our target, the extra money, we share it evenly, despite being a CEO, etc. And they're making a lot of money. Actually, they're like, in 2 or 3 months, they may ditch their salary, say, you know what, boss, just give us our bonus because your salary is too small. Yeah. You know, they will be making more in bonuses than salary. So, I know how not to make a contract that makes sense for everyone. But back then, you give someone 5 years contract, and then there's no way to fire him. Like, shit, I can't fire you. So we take you to the city. It's like, oh, this guy, and the city was like, you know what, you have to pay me 3 months. So you take like 1.5 multiplied by 3 to someone who's not going to be there, and you have no choice to do so. Why now I'm venturing back into the entrepreneurship is because now I know what to know or what to do and avoid exactly such mistakes that have cost me a lot of money. So, but I think all entrepreneurs, for the first time business, they went through such thing where you don't have money to pay your people, where you don't know what to do, where you can't sleep for like literally a week. You can't sleep at all because there's too much things. Like someone is driving, driving a car and the dashboard is becoming red. Maybe a car is even not that risky. Like, think of a plane, or the button becomes red. At the same time, the alarms goes here, fire this, fire that. Like, and at the same time, the your co-pilot is like, you know what, boss, this is not working. And this lady who serves meal is like, okay, this also not working. I mean, everything's not working at all. So you need to be able to survive such situation where you feel like, you know what, I need to focus on what's matter the most. I've learned, for example, that I need to extinguish one fire after another. You can extinguish all the fire at the same time. So you need to make sure, okay, we were supposed to pay the rent, but employees, I need them. So you pay the employees first, and then you go to the landlord. You need to be honest, by the way. Tell him like, okay, listen, we were supposed to have this investor. This is the letter, but he disappeared now. So give me some few moment or month or days. I'm going to come up with the solution. I have no solution for right now. And most of the tenants will be like, landlord, sorry, will be like, okay, yeah, it makes sense, because they know you are into business. So those are things you learn. But again, when it happens, you think like the world is ending. I was calling, sending email like, why didn't you answer my emails? The guy, I think he muted me everywhere. Yeah. I have never known why. So to sum up, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I agree with you, but everyone should try it to discover that you are not actually, it's not your business. And the earlier you start that, I think like when I have kids at the age of 16, I'll request from them to have a business. a small business that I know definitely they're going to lose money. I will fund it, I knowing very well that they're going to lose money. But just to realize if they're really entrepreneur or not. And let them face those challenges where, for example, if they mismanage their money, they lose. Exactly. You say, okay, if your business fail, then I won't take you for vacation, whatever we're supposed to go, Disney, etc. And they're like, damn, this is serious, And literally when it happens, you leave them home, you take the whole family to Disneyland, and the guys stay at home and without any TV, just to make him feel like, damn, life is real. And believe me, when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to realize that life is real. It's not a joke. It's not fiction. Yeah.
You're in the process of launching a book.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the book. What is it about? Who are you talking to in the book? And when is it being released?
So the book was written right after I lost my 350 something. It was in 2018. Now it's 5 years ago. And I released many versions in PDF format to friends and family and other entrepreneur club just to have them look at it and tell me what they think about it. And the book is called, the title is starting from the bush. And why the bush? Because when you're starting a business for the first time, you don't know the rules. Try to imagine if they throw you into Amazon forest, like right now. You don't know how you're going to survive. You don't know what you should eat, what you shouldn't drink, etc. So you have to experiment a lot of things. And in the meantime, you're going to be bitten by all kinds of animals, mosquitoes, snake, etc. So that was the easiest way to describe your first time experience as an entrepreneur, or as a leader of an enterprise startup called. So I wrote that book because one thing I agree that I made well with merchants, it was PR-wise was great. People have no idea what was my name, but they knew about merchants, and I've made sure that in 15 seconds, people can understand what it's all about. And some people were even pitching my idea to others people. So they had really understood what I was working about. So they thought also the product was great and everything was great, but it wasn't the case. So they started coming to me like, oh, can you be my mentor? Can you be my mentor? I had like a lot of young people who wanted me to be their mentor. And I was telling them, like, well, go on internet. Whatever I know, I got it from internet. So I realized, first of all, they don't have that such easy access to internet. Secondly, most of the content is in English and French. So the book, by the way, is in Kinyarwanda. And the reason being is because I wanted now to make it accessible to as much as minds in Rwanda. And I think we should do that in Africa because access to internet is not that obvious for most Africans. Secondly, most of the content are into English or French. So not that much African speaks French or understand French and English. So the book, officially, I want to make sure that by June, it now has its own ISBN number, and then it's ready to be bought on Amazon, etc. Because 5 years of feedback had made it very relevant to the point where people feel like, why aren't you releasing this book? We need it. It's really very. I've never gotten any negative feedback where people say this book is stupid. This book is like, they're actually like, I read it twice, and I send it to a friend of mine. Now they want to buy it on Amazon, but they can't find it. But I'm like, no, it's not for people on Amazon. It's actually for people, poor people. Yeah. And by the way, the intention is not to sell it. It's actually to find some NGO or other benefactor who want to fund the printing. So we'll be distributing them freely in villages and schools, so people can read about that. Say, okay, if someone can lose $350,000 and doesn't, you don't die, then why not? Let me try it. It's about inspiring people, but also opening eyes, saying, okay, for example, there's chapters that talk about how do you raise money. Most of the people, they are waiting after the government to raise money. And I'm like, I've never raised any money from the government. They're like, how? Well, there are a lot of websites there of people want to give you 5K or 10K, as long as your idea makes sense. And they don't even take shares. So why don't you target making? Of course, don't do the focus I did, like just focus on raising money. Once you know the amount of money you want to achieve a certain point, then there are a lot of websites that you can go to and then pitch your idea, and then you get the money. So most of young people didn't know about that. They're like, really? And then, yeah, I did it, so you can do it. So that's a way of inspiring people. And I feel like me and you, we've been lucky enough to be exposed to such Western or other experience from successful people elsewhere. And I'm sure whenever we are challenged, we ask ourselves, well, how is it Elon Musk surviving such whatever challenge? We don't do a copy paste from Elon Musk, but we're like, okay, he did this thing, and Jack Ma did this, and then whoever else did that. Okay, let me create my own, but based on their experience. So a village boy who have no idea who Elon Musk is, or Jack Ma, where do you want him to avoid doing the mistake I did, so his business can survive or can have more chance to survive that mine, is if me and you, we shared those experiences, but in a way or a language that he's able to understand. So basically that was the mission of the book. And I'm not looking actually to sell it at all. I'm looking to have people funding, and then we distribute in the communities. And who knows where will come from there. If I can inspire some people and seeing them becoming millionaire, I'll be much satisfied guy that, because at the end also of the day, entrepreneur is not about money.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you build something and then when it's successful, you feel like you're proud. Like the agency I started it from the government, whenever I pass in front of that, I'm like, dang, I'm proud. and yeah, so the book is all about that, and being released around June next year. Yeah. And I hope we'll be back to talk about it.
Yeah, amazing, man. Yeah. Muhire, thank you so much for the work that you've done over a couple of years, and the work that you keep doing on the continent.
Thank you for having me. And I think also you're doing something great. We needed to make sure that Rwanda hear from people who are really trying to change things, specifically on entrepreneurship level, where we need to know what is Yusuf is doing. How is he smiling all the time? Because we can see you smile like, oh, this guy is having an easy life. But we need to hear from you what's going on. They see me driving a nice car, that this guy has made it. Like, man, you don't know what I went through. You know what I mean? So we need that kind of content. And I wish you a lot of success.
Thank you very much, man. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.